So welcome everybody. We got a good crowd online. This is one of our first webinars that we're doing on how to build your towing business, and we're really privileged to have James Bennett here with us today. He's been one of RoadSync's longtime customers with Beards Towing, and we're just going to have an informal chat about how he's grown that business to scale and his tips and tricks and thoughts on the industry in general. So thank you very much for joining us, James.
Thanks for having me.
Just to get started, would love to hear you tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get into the towing business, and then how did you get into building beards?
I'm a second generation tower. My father got into the towing business when I was 5 years old. So definitely grew up in the industry. There's a lot of things as a younger kid that I didn't understand that went with it. And then obviously as you get older and you start doing it as a career, things change pretty quick. I started my first towing company when I was 27. Um, Built that company up somewhat and then sold it. I ended up buying this company, Beards, in 2012, 2013. When I bought Beards, there were four trucks. And out of those four trucks, there were a couple of them that weren't really functional. So we put in a deal to trade those off and get some newer equipment so that we can be more profitable and more efficient with trucks going down the road. Um, After that, just started making great relationships with a bunch of customers that like the way that we do business. There's a lot of transparency that went with it. Here we are 15 years later almost, and we went from four trucks to we just added truck 55 yesterday. And then we've got four more trucks that are on order right now, and they're additions, not replacements. So next year we'll start with the replacements.
And tell people a little bit about where you're located, what kind of segment you serve, and just other things that kind of you think would be interesting to other towing businesses about what's unique about your business and where how you're operating.
The majority of our light duty business, it comes from police departments in counties. We serve the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're located in Fort Worth, Arlington, Kennedale, and Burleson. We have Tarrant County locations and Johnson County locations. That has been very, very well to us as far as relationship wise. We do go everywhere pretty much. I mean, we've got guys going to all the surrounding states, all the way as far as we've been to Washington State. Um, Not real fond going too far north. The different rules and regulations, as the towers up north can tell you. However, pretty much, from east to west, we'll send a truck if it's something that's within our customers' limits.
And if you had to do it over again, or if you were advising somebody who was starting a towing business, like what do you feel like are your big lessons learned and the things that you would tell someone?
Biggest thing is the towing industry is a very hard competitive industry. On our end here, that's made us successful is we understand that sacrifice, and I'm very blessed that my wife, my kids, they understand how much it takes out of you. Sometimes, the normal day is 12 to 14 hours. Um, the hectic days are 18 plus hours, and which they come and go. You miss birthdays and anniversaries and sometimes funerals. It's a very demanding industry that really doesn't get the recognition that it deserves when it comes to a first responders environment. In the state of Texas, it's 1 in 9. So for one uh, police officer or firefighter or EMS that's hit on the roadway, there's 9 tow truck operators that's hit. Um, so my advice to someone that's looking at getting into this business or is thinking about it is understand the sacrifice and the risk that goes with it. And just like with any career, you need to go in it to be successful. You have to be committed, and the only thing that on our end that's proven is the consistency of it.
Yeah, I think it's probably misunderstood in the market how actually dangerous the profession really can be. So I think that's something that somebody has to think about when they start a business. Um, Let's talk about the business itself. You've obviously been able to grow it. You talked about growing it from 4 trucks to 55, hoping to add some more next year. And what do you think are sort of the capabilities and core skills on your team, or just you as a business owner, that have been really important and critical to growing your business? And sort of how has that evolved over time? So everything from like, have you acquired other businesses? How do you go to market and do marketing and find your customers? And you talked about government contracts. So just any of that, like, what do you feel like have been the big pillars for scaling your business over the last couple of years?
So a lot of tourists probably are not going to agree with this part of it, but relationships, and that includes relationships with other towing companies. This is a huge market in the towing industry, period, across the United States. Um, Prior to, I would probably say somewhere around 2013, 2012, the industry that I grew up in, or I say industry, but the market that I grew up in, it was just over competitive. The over competitive part really made bad names for the towing industry in general. You've got one guy that would call around and say that he'd do it $10 cheaper than the last guy. Um, Instead of there's plenty of towing to go. I mean, there's no shortage, especially in major cities and major counties. So with that said, you need to partner up with reputable companies and start setting the bar for the metroplexes that you reside in.
And like, what other investments have you made to scale your business as you've kind of grown it, other than relationships? And again, I know you have some contract business, but how are you marketing your business? Are there, other things that you feel like have been really instrumental to growing and sort of expanding over time?
In the towing company, I don't know of many towing companies that have the best reviews, just in general. Nobody wants to get in an accident. Nobody wants to have to deal with the insurance companies, let alone the towing companies. So there just needs to be positive feedback, and we have a marketing person that works for us and handles our Facebook and handles our social media accounts and so on and so forth, that not only puts our stuff that's out there just about our company, but about the industry and the changes and the rules, the regulations, that come with it, that educates the public. That's kind of a big deal. The hardest part to overcome is to educate the public on why things have to be done the way that they have to be done. It's not as simple as, hey, my car's here, let's go pick it up. There's still guidelines, federal guidelines that we have to follow. And the anger comes from the miscommunication and the lack of education. So we try to do both of those. We try to obviously boast our company into a positive light, but also we want to educate the public on why things are done the way they're done.
So what kinds of things are you doing to educate the public?
So we have social media blasts in our pay room, which when people come pick up their vehicles, we have TVs and stuff in there that kind of shows transportation codes and
Yep.
stuff like that, so that they can read it for themselves, and if they want to leave, they can research it for themselves as well. But again, that education right there changes the direction of the conversation.
And what do you feel like are the best sources of business? Is it sort of referrals? Is it, just word of mouth?
Definitely word of mouth is huge. And unfortunately, in today's market or today's world, the word of mouth comes from social media, and so we have to do our best to be able to portray that we're an understanding. It's not just a heartless industry, to where we understand that you got in a wreck, and we understand that this is not the most bright light in your time period going on right now, but in the darkest times, here's where we can educate you on the things that we have to go through. We'll help you get through it. However, we still have to abide by rules as well.
Are there any sort of, is there special equipment or capabilities that you all have focused on developing to sort of differentiate yourself in the market, or anything else that you sort of have thought about to kind of make make your business more unique in the overall market?
It's trademark, I guess is the best way to look at it. We trademark our company and we put it out there as a brand. In I think going forward in any industry that right now is it's a brand. But a brand is just like back in the older days where it was your name, and your name is what you had to go off of. So as long as we keep our brand honest and keep our brand sacred to us with integrity and a good moral compass, I mean that's the fundamentals of being successful.
And that's why you kept Beards Towing versus sort of renaming the company?
It is. The guy that first started this company, his name was Tom Beards. He started it in 1954. Tom Beards passed it on to a gentleman named Mike Post, and then I purchased it from Mike Post. And those two gentlemen before me had great names. They had great integrity, and I just wanted to follow that suit. They had great relationships with several cities that came with the purchase of the company. And 1954, and it's still going, is a pretty good success story in itself.
Yeah, for sure. For any business. So a lot of folks in the industry talk a little bit about and honestly, almost any business talks about the challenges of hiring good talent. Can you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on hiring, keeping skilled mechanics and other folks, tow truck operators, or the service providers that the folks that you need to keep your business running? How has that been for you?
Challenging, and I think that goes across any industry. We're very involved with our police departments, our fire departments, and even on those levels as well, their hiring strategies have changed over the course of COVID. COVID kind of set a precedent. So, there's a lot of stay-at-home people, and that's their comfort level. On ours, we train within. We have a great training program. If it's a new hire and they've never been in this industry, they typically have 4 to 6 weeks through training. Obviously, we just pay them the salary as they go through their training. And then they'll have to pass an evaluation through the supervisors. It's a big investment. I mean, it is. We've got, you invest in stock markets, you invest in insurance, you invest in everything. But our biggest investment is in the employees. And if the employees aren't willing to do it right, that's something that you need to catch through a process to where there's some type of insurance, meaning there's a trainer that's with them, or there's a evaluation at the end, so that we can, make sure that they're ready for that next level. Because the liability once they're released that's our biggest liability.
So are most of your folks that you're hiring, or is it the first time that they're in the towing business, or are you hiring them from like their specific industries or backgrounds that you're looking for when you try to find somebody?
100%. It's all. We've got drivers that have driven for other record services. That's the most common in this industry. Is so you've got some guys that jump from one company to another company for many reasons. One, they're just looking for a place that suits them, and in the younger generation right now, they quit their other job out of anger, and don't understand just quite yet of the maturity level that it's the consistency that's going to make you great instead of the moving around. And then we have guys that they've done over the road and they're just tired of being gone all the time, and they want something that has a lot more home time and a little bit more flexibility that goes with it. And then of course the majority of them don't work out because this industry really was not cut out for the majority. That it takes a special type of person that has a dedication, that wants to get out there and each time they go tow something or each time they go do a recovery, that's a huge accomplishment when it comes to this type of work, because you did it safe, you made it home safe, and then on top of that, you get to go out and every job's different than the last.
what are those characteristics that you're looking at? You talked about sort of dedication and willingness to put in hard work, but are there other things that you kind of look for when you think make people more likely to work out?
Kind of top to bottom, we got inside, tattletale things that we look for. And then there's just the characteristics when they're riding with a trainer. But, you know, one of the golden rules is you see how they treat their personal equipment, and that'll kind of give you a tattletale on how they'll treat yours. So going forward with that, we want to make sure that, our stuff is treated the correct way. You go walk by their vehicle and it's trashed out, or, just in general, it's not clean, it's not taken care of. The odds are they're not going to do that to yours. And that's one of our biggest investments on the road is, these things are millions of dollars, pieces of equipment. And you don't want them treated like they're a bubble gum wrapper in a console.
I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. I would not want you to see my car and what my children have done to it, but
Well, then give them time to talk and tell, about their history. And, honestly, if they talk a lot about their home life and their kids and their family, consistently for us, that has worked out great because, they have something that they're working for instead of looking for a place that just provides a paycheck.
well, so let's talk about I called it your tech stack, but sort of what are the pieces of technology and tools that you use to run your business? So obviously RoadSync is one of them, but you talk to us a little bit about what you think are the core tools for making sure that your business is ready to scale and operate as efficiently as possible.
Obviously, our system, is our software system. We have the dispatching side of it, and then we have the maintenance side of it as well. Those two tools right there are used 100% of the time. And when I say 100, it's 24/7, 365. The ability for our software system to integrate with companies like RoadSync is, that's that third key that comes in there, that helps make us more efficient. And anybody that's in business that should be in business knows that efficiency is key. I mean, that's got to be your number one thing. You're not running efficient, but losing money. And time is the only thing that we are guaranteed not to get back. So if we can cut down the mistakes within certain time periods or the inaccuracies, then that's going to make us more successful in the long.
And what kinds of sort of mistakes and inefficiencies do you feel like the software tools help you do? Like, is it sort of misbilling, or is it charging people the wrong amount, or is it just, better efficiency in terms of dispatching vehicles? And I mean, what do you think are like the things that you look at on a regular basis to make your business run as efficiently as possible?
Prior to where we're at today,
Yep.
was definitely data entry, double data entry. We would have to enter stuff into our system for certain cities. And so we were, constantly, we do it for one city, then we do it for another city, and then do the same thing for another city. So that took a lot of I say manpower, but woman power to be able to do that, because their jobs correcting invoices and making sure that statements are sent out the right way, and then making sure that the report process for the cities, when it came to, the calls, the ETAs, et cetera, all that stuff was broken down into individual jobs. And as our technology software that we use has, evolved more and more, it's literally cut that time period to something that would take 5 days to do, that would take 6 hours at the beginning of the week to knock out. And if you can gain 4 days out of a week in any business, that's great news.
Yep.
So, and then it's made them a lot happier too, which changes the environment as well, as far as the inner office environment. And then that flows obviously to the drivers, because the technology, they get to help enter some of that information and it goes into the report process. The GPS integration, the same thing. It helps streamline that report process. RoadSync integrated straight into our system as well. And with several requests and, you being able to answer those requests when it comes to changing some things around that fits our reporting process, has been phenomenal. And so it's opened up more time to get other things accomplished that need to get accomplished within the office staff.
And if you could wave a magic wand, is there anything that you wish you had that would make your business work better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that works in our business and in just about every industry. Just I would think that people in general to have a different type of drive. We're very lucky here. We've kind of, I don't want to say the carrot in front of the horse type mentality, but we show them what the goal is. And as long as, they can see it and then they get to achieve it day by day, just like the drivers in doing different hauls. It's not something that they'll never get. It's something that they get rewarded for on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting time to run a business, especially post pandemic, and different generations have different thoughts on work ethic and what work life balance needs to look like. So I hear you for sure. Um, Talk to me. I mean, other than the people, we've talked a lot about managing talent and stuff and how that's evolved. But in general, how has your industry evolved over the last 5+ years? And sort of what do you think are the big changes coming in the future? This is a little bit of a two-part question for you.
That's probably the biggest questions that we'll be going to you know, the state and the Congress about. We've evolved setting the bar as far as an industry. There are a lot of larger companies that have taken the stance of, we want to set a standard for the towing industry. We get that there's companies that are out there that are one or two trucks. Those companies need to know that they're just as important as the 55 truck. However, they need to follow a standard, meaning in Texas, we have I guess it's a uniform type code through TDLR who regulates us. You boots and hard hats and, et cetera, vests. That's very important because when you go out on an accident scene or you're watching it on TV, all of those police officers are dressed alike. You know who they are. All of those firefighters are dressed alike. You know who they are. The towers, we have towers in this industry that show up in flip flops and shorts, and some of them have the tank tops on, and it's very important for you to be uniformed with the industry that you're working with to set that standard. Obviously, throughout the whole United States, you can tell a police officer on scene, you can tell a firefighter on scene. But if a tow truck driver were to hit on scene 12 years ago, you would think that it was somebody that flew out of a car or somebody that wasn't working that accident scene. The importance of being able to identify everybody on scene is very important just for those reasons. If something catastrophic happens, we need to know who that person was and why that person was there.
Anything else from you, James, that you feel like folks should know about running a business in the space?
I would say that I don't guess I really touched on that second part of your question, but where the industry is going, obviously it's AI and it's obviously EV vehicles. Everybody has their pros and cons, and it's probably not good to blow up this chat room on it, but it's going to be very interesting to see how Congress handles this. And electric vehicle is not a motorized vehicle, and the majority of the transportation code is written for motor vehicles. The majority of the vehicle storage facility rules and regulations are written for motor vehicles. There's a high risk when it comes to electric vehicles. There's a both towing it, recovering it, and storing it.
Yep.
There's a lot of rules that need to either get changed or a separate category that needs to be added towards a transportation code that pertains strictly to electric vehicles.
So we did get a question from Stephanie. Where are you finding training for heavy duty Nikola Class A trucks? And I might have said the name wrong.
We do all of our training in-house. We also hire companies, Miller, to come in and we do some heavy duty rotator training there. We also have a program that we put together. We've got 13 or 14 different casualties when it comes to the heavy duty stuff. And then on top of that, the training, like I said, every driver that comes through here, whether they got experience or not, they arrive 4 to 6 weeks with a trainer. It's just part of our program.
And since you brought up the EV vehicles, Stephanie had a follow-up question, like how are you storing those wrecked Teslas and other EV vehicles, given that their possibility of catching on fire?
Great question. So in the state of Texas, and if you go look through some federal literature, it wants you, there's no rule that's official, but the recommendation is 50 feet from any other vehicle. We have fireboxes. We spent the money. For those of y'all that are not familiar with them, feel free to look those up. They're fireboxes for electric vehicles. They kind of look like cut up shipping containers that are reinforced. We have 4 of those here. When we first purchased the first 2 sets, it was $100,000 for both of them. Now they've gone up about $35,000. So it's very expensive to try to keep up with this industry, which is why I said earlier in the conversation that we've got to get some type of rules and changes so that the pricing structure for this type of risk can be calculated into your profit and loss.
And so you said over $100,000 for one of those fireboxes. Does that just store one vehicle?
Right. So when we first purchased them, it was 50,000 a piece, but we bought 2, so it was 100,000 for the set. And yes, it only holds one vehicle.
That's crazy. And do you price that into sort of the services for electric vehicles specifically? Like, do you have a whole rate schedule for electric vehicles that's different from regular gas vehicles?
In the state of Texas, it's regulated. The storage is regulated, so it doesn't matter if it's a electric vehicle or gas vehicle or diesel vehicle. They only let you charge one price if it's under 20 foot, which goes back to, there needs to be some serious conversation that goes on so that we can get some change when it comes to these electric vehicles.
We got one more question. So when building relationships, how do you think about who to reach out to first? And so what are some important things as you build a relationship with some of the folks that you've talked about? You talked a lot about how relationships are important. So just talk a little bit about your philosophy for building those relationships.
Don't bite off more than you can chew. That is kind of very big in this industry, because now you're stepping on your brand. When you need to make sure that you have the equipment and the resources to facilitate the customer that you're going after. First impressions, again, same thing. You go in there and you promise the world, and 2 or 3 times into the relationship, you don't perform. They're going to call somebody else, and you're going to be somebody of the past. So my biggest suggestion is go all on the customers, or set your goal that's something that is achievable by yourself and your team, and then worry about knocking that out. Don't try to get 5 or 6 of them in a row and then see which ones come through. If you focus on that one, build that relationship, that's a relationship for a lifetime, and they'll be there to support you when you go to the next.
So the person online says that where they are, there's really no real set of standard for pricing. So how do they think about pricing and setting their prices when that's the sort of the state of play in their market?
The best answer I can give you to that is it doesn't matter what the market is, and it matters what your bottom line is. And the way that I set my pricing, it sets off, I know where I need to be on a profit margin, which is falls back into our conversation earlier, Robin, about our technology. So our technology can tell me how much money I made or I lost on a tire, on a brakes, or, if something's warranted or not. And, once you have that data collected, say 3, 6 months, you will know what you can and can't afford to do a job for. I'd say the biggest failure in small business is that they don't know what their bottom line is. So they don't know what their actual profit margin is. And a lot of people are undershooting themselves. So if you want to figure out what pricing you should be at, start with what profit margin you want to hit, and then put all that stuff together and see where you're at, and then start adjusting your price off that. I would strongly suggest you figure out what your bottom line is and what your profit margin needs to be. And then, have somewhere between the 10 to 12% margin of error that's calculated on both sides, on the profit and the loss.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you talking to us today. I appreciate everybody online. James, really grateful for, first of all, for being a longtime RoadSync customer, but also all of your wisdom today. So thanks, James.